You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Locked On Lakers for Monday. Brian Kamenetzky and Andy Kamenetzky. Hope you had an excellent weekend. This episode brought to you by Locker Room. Download the app and join us this week on Friday at noon Pacific to get in on the action. Locker Room, changing the way we talk sports. Andy, we got a few things to get into today. We're going to talk a little Lonzo ball and whether or not LeBron is actively recruiting him. It's silly season on Twitter. But
recruiting season with a SZN. That's where we're at right now. Yeah.
As people who follow us regularly know, our favorite kind of speculation is reckless speculation.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I don't waste my time with informed, sourced, well-reported, knowledgeable speculation. I want ridiculous bull bleep. That's what I want.
Things that are rooted in truth are often not nearly as much fun as the random crap that flies around the internet during silly season. So,
no, absolutely. That's what I live for that. So
yeah, we'll do that. We definitely were going to try to get to Glen Davis and Kyrie Irving and the ridiculous Instagram post that Glen Davis put out on Sunday after Kyrie Irving left his game with the Bucks with an ankle injury that he left the arena in a walking boot. Not that Glen Davis cares. So we'll do that. But let's start here, Andy, because this weekend was the 19th anniversary of the Threepeat team, the third championship. They clinched it on the 12th, I believe, of June. It was 19 years ago. So over the weekend, it kind of reminds me of
when the Nets
things.
were still in New Jersey.
I know.
And Byron Scott was the coach, Jason Kidd, Kenyon Martin. Lakers made pretty quick work of that team.
Now Kenyon Martin's kid is like a pro.
I know. I know, really, man. It is nuts.
I'm an old man. So it got me thinking of a couple things. First of all, it's a reminder, like, man, those teams were good. Like, you think, like, I understand we're in an era now where it's 3 stars and not 2 or whatever it is, but like Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal played on the same team for a long time. Like, that was good. It's hard to find combinations of players that can be better, particularly in the combination with each other, than Shaq and Kobe.
Yeah,
that is crazy.
For all of the amount of drama that came with those two playing together and how they often did not enjoy playing with each other, they were incredible teaming off each other. And it's obviously, unless you get into something like egos or weird fits or whatever, 3 is always better than 2 when it comes to stars, but occasionally 2's plenty. And in this particular
case, it might have been too many.
I guess actually.
But it's just it's funny. Like, people always talk with that team about the titles that Shaq and Kobe left on the table, and yes, that it is true that on raw talent, if they'd been able to get along and keep it together, and Shaq had a different work ethic and all this, then they could. The talent would have won them more titles. But as our former colleague and current Lakers broadcaster John Ireland likes to point out, given their personalities, and you add in like the ego of Phil Jackson and the spotlight of LA and all that, it's actually kind of impressive that they won that, as much as they did, that they held it together. Like, that is something that should be celebrated, I think, more than kind of lamenting that they didn't win 4 or 5 or 6 or something like that.
Kobe used to talk about that, just like the idea of when you take into account their personalities, like, and you think about this like a marriage, because this was essentially a professional marriage. Mm-hmm. If you knew 2 people that were married for 8 years, then got divorced, you would look at their marriage as a legitimate marriage and just say, they went together 8 years and then eventually it broke up. But you wouldn't think about that as some type of sham relationship. 8 years is a long time. Like, I often think about this too in terms of like prison sentences. if you had to do 8 years in prison, that's legit, man. That is a long time.
8 years is a long time.
Long time to be inside, as opposed to say like 8 days, like a shotgun wedding. That's not a very long time to be married. And, while those 8 days would probably be pretty hellish.
And let's be very clear. Neither one of us is going to make it through.
No,
8 years or 8 days.
Sure.
The minute we go inside, we're not coming out.
No, I'm not 100% sure I can just get through the holding cell part of it.
I could do 8 hours.
but that's a legitimate time together. And, I remember you and I years ago, we interviewed Duff McKagan, the bass player for Guns N' Roses, who is a huge basketball fan. He's a big Sonics fan. He's from Seattle, still angry at Clay Bennett for moving the team to Oklahoma City. But we asked about that Kobe Shaq pairing and like the idea of stuff being left on the table and compared to like Guns N' Roses, because their heyday was massive. I mean, there was a 3 or 4 year window where they were like the biggest band in the world, but it was a fast rise and a just really messy disillusion. And we asked about the idea of like, did you guys leave gold records, platinum albums, songs on the cutting room floor, on the table? He's like, yeah, we did, but at the same time, like there's only so long you can do this. But I think it's more of a testament to what they were able to accomplish. Teams don't stay to get Brian. Like, this is one of the reasons why this is really impressive in a lot of ways too. Mm-hmm. Even now, teammates that get along, superstars that are actually well paired, they rarely play 8 years together anyway.
Okay, because this is one of the other. There are a few things that this anniversary brought to mind, and that what you're talking about there kind of gets to another one. Like, you go back in those plucky upstart Boston Celtics, the We Believe Celtics of the 60s that just got by on cunning and guile, if you believe Red Auerbach
and whiteness.
Right, that was helpful.
Whiteness and the one black dude they brought in that was better than everyone else. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in a row. Then, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in a row. Whatever it was, they won a bunch in a row. Yeah. But after that, nobody was winning 3 in a row. It was an unusual thing, and then all of a sudden, it got almost like common enough that people felt like, 3 in a row is something that should happen. The Bulls won 3 in a row. Twice with Jordan, and the Lakers did it, after the Spurs won in 99, the Lakers win 3 in a row. So all of a sudden everybody's doing it. It hasn't happened since. And while some teams have repeated, nobody's won 3 straight. Do you think it'll ever happen again? I mean, never.
Ever is a long. I understand. Ever is a long time.
Never say never, but the likelihood of it is really small. I mean,
I think no.
Between the talent that's required and the luck that you need to have, just in terms of things breaking your way, health, during the threepeat for the Lakers, off the top of my head, the only long sustained injury they dealt with was in 2001. Fisher missed most of that season, I think with a broken foot, but he was available for all the playoffs and played really well. Mm-hmm. Kobe missed, I think, the opening 10 or so games of the 2000 season, like a broken wrist or something. But by and large, those teams were really healthy during the regular season and totally intact
completely
during the playoffs.
By the way, and you look at why this doesn't happen again
until Shaq, company time is toe, Karl Malone,
right, exactly, and then they go in, and that's how that thing, it doesn't. I mean, obviously the Spurs were in the middle, but you go back into them losing to the Pistons, and there's that kind of thing that happens. And, or you go back to what year was it? The Lakers lost to the Pistons with the show, the 89.
Yeah.
Right. Where Worthy gets hurt. Mm-hmm. That happens. I think it's a couple things one transcendent star backed by Scottie Pippen isn't necessarily going to do it for you anymore. You need other stuff. I mean, LeBron has lost finals, and it's not usually because, other than the Dallas series, it's not because he plays poorly. It's because now these teams are constructed so well, and they're coached so well, that I think it just one guy can't do it, assuming the other team, is good. The Warriors are about as talented as any team that could possibly be assembled. They went to 5 straight finals, but they only won 3 and not 3 in a row.
Yeah.
I just think the mental and physical wear that it takes to do that is just tremendous. And obviously, like you say, forever is a long time, but I don't see it happening. I mean, I would bet against it. Certainly in my lifetime, I would bet against it.
The odds definitely don't favor it. There's no question about it. It really speaks to just how amazing what they accomplished was.
Yep.
And I think everybody knows it. But when you take into account the lack of frequency with it before and afterwards, it really puts in perspective that was a special achievement.
All right, there's one more question I want to ask about this because that's related to the LeBron AD Lakers now. Like if the three-peat thing is something that is much different, harder to attain, all that stuff, the competition for winning a title, we talked about it all last week, particularly in the West right now, is insane. What defines success for the LeBron AD era? They've already got 1 championship. Is it already a success? Do they need more? We'll talk about that next.
Locked On Lakers brought to you by Indeed. If you're the hiring expert for your company, what you really need is help making your short list of quality candidates. You need a hiring partner who makes your life easier. You need Indeed. Indeed is the job site that makes hiring as easy as 1, 2, 3, post, screen, interview, all on Indeed. Get your quality short list of candidates whose resume match your job description. Only pay for the candidates that have must-have qualifications. Schedule and complete video interviews on your Indeed dashboard. Indeed makes hiring the right talent fast and easy. And with tools like Indeed Instant Match, giving you quality candidates whose resume on Indeed fits your job description immediately, or the Indeed skills test that on average reduce hiring time by 27%. According to Talent Nest, no. This coming up is great. 27% is good. Listen to this, though. According to Talent Nest, Indeed delivers 4 times more hires than all the other job sites combined. Yes, that's more than a three-peat, by the way. That's a four-peat.
Four-peat.
In terms of job sites, that's success. It's amazing. So get started right now with a free $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/locked. Get a $75 credit at Indeed.com/locked. Indeed.com/locked. Offer valid through June 30th. Terms and conditions apply.
Locked On Lakers podcast also brought to you by Built Bar. If you're like me, you need something during the day that can kind of get you through, whether you're trying to work out, whether you're just trying to get your kids from here to there or get some work done, whatever it is. You want something healthy, but it also tastes good. That's Built Bar. High in protein, but low in sugar, low in calories. If you're vain like me, you don't want to get a little hippie.
Get vainer.
Perfect. Yeah, well, I'm trying. It can only be so vain. The improved Built Bar, even more delicious than it was before. They've got 18 flavors to choose from. Even if you're picky, you can find something you like out of 18 of them. And they will also calm your sweet tooth, even without all the sugar, because they're coated in 100% real chocolate. And unlike some protein bars, they're actually soft and easy to chew. That is a change of pace. Go to BuiltBar.com, use the promo code LOCKED15, you'll get 15% off your next order. That's, again, the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at BuiltBar.com. Andy, if LeBron and AD only win 1 title, is that a success?
It's a success just because titles are incredibly difficult to come by. I think when you are a Laker fan, that perspective can sometimes get warped when you're staring at 17, Boston has 17, San Antonio has 5, Chicago has 6, and like everyone else
has like none or 1,
or like 3, something like that. It becomes really easy, especially too, not just the amount of titles, but how spread out they've been for the Lakers. They're not like the Celtics where, due respect, there's some front loading going on with that.
Oh, I mentioned again, when all of them come in the 60s, they count.
Yeah,
but it's like I don't find that to be highly relevant to today's conversation.
But that being said, though, if they only win 1, it would be underwhelming. It would be a relatively underwhelming result for what I think all of us thought was possible with LeBron still playing at a really high level and Anthony Davis in his prime together. 2 guys that are really well matched, playing off each other. Their skill sets complement each other really well. It would be underwhelming. I'm not going to lie. It's still a success. It's a success, but it's a more qualified success.
I think too, it's like, it depends on what else comes. Like I like that you're kind of couching. It's like it is already successful. The trade was a success. The trade was the right thing. They won a title. Like that was the point of doing the thing. I figured they'd have a reasonable shot at like 2 and 4 years. And by the way, still do. They win one in the next 2 and they hit that target. But I remember when LeBron got here, it was like, how many titles does LeBron have to win for him to get his jersey retired? And it was generally speaking, people thought more than one. There was a lot of that. You need 2. 2 is a guarantee. 1 is a maybe. None is like, I don't know. And we're talking about LeBron freaking James, playing for your franchise for 3, 4, 5 years, whatever it turns out to be.
Who knows? Maybe that window gets extended a little bit further, Brian. If Lonzo Ball could actually be brought back.
Professional seg from Andy.
Right. The road, by the way, Brian, that is the future road to the finals. And today on the road to the finals, our NBA playoffs coverage brought to you by Michelob Ultra. It's only worth it if you enjoy it at 2.6 carbs, 95 calories. We can all enjoy the games a little more this season, maybe even next season, if that road includes Lonzo Ball.
So for people who missed this, Andy and I were referring to silly season in terms of the rumor mill. It's the best. So Lonzo, I guess, has an episode of something. I guess he was doing this for Uninterrupted or whatever it was. He's talking to Jackson Hayes and Robert Horry. And
I've been dying to see those two work together for years.
I know, right?
Glad it finally happened.
It's just a matter of finding the right project.
Yes.
In that podcast, he relayed the advice to Jackson Hayes that LeBron gave to him about keeping the main thing, and puts that out on Twitter. Appreciate the wise words from @King James. LeBron responds with always a text, phone call, or FT FaceTime away, bro. And little prayer hands and a fist bump and a heart and a crown. And of course, Twitter reacts by saying, yeah, Lonzo's coming back.
Lonzo to LA confirmed. Schroeder signed and traded to New Orleans confirmed.
Right. Whether he wants to go there or not doesn't matter. How do you say Mardi Gras in German? But because Lonzo's future could be actually. Because Lonzo's future in New Orleans is very much up in the air. Schroeder's is here.
It's kind of weird, but that's another story.
The whole thing is.
Lonzo's like a really good fit to me with Zion, but what do I know?
The whole thing, I mean, obviously, but like, so would like that excite you? With the idea of, let's say you could swap out Dennis Schroeder for Lonzo. Is that a better deal for the Lakers?
I think it actually could be. I think Lonzo might actually fit what they need. The last couple of years, he shot from outside well. And
he was 38%. He was 38% this year from
volume. Like this is a legitimate clip that he's putting it up at. He can be a good secondary. He's not the same type of playmaker that LeBron is. Like I have not seen Pelicans games as often as we used to see Lonzo on a regular basis when we were covering the teams he was on with the Lakers. So I don't know how much his pick and roll orchestrating has improved over the last couple of years. Like the ins and outs of it. I know it was not his strength when he was with the Lakers.
No, he's much more free in the open.
Like a hit ahead.
But also some of that too was because you have problems as a pick and roll creator when nobody respects the idea that you might go all the way to the basket, which he didn't want to do because he was terrified of getting fouled. His free throw percentage this year was up around 80%. On ludicrously low volume. He was taking like 1 a game. But if you can start making them at 80%, that might encourage you to go more often.
This is what I would say. His scoring was not much different in terms of points per game than Schroeder, but it seems like in certain ways, particularly with shooting, he might be able to provide a certain type of scoring that this team needed more than what they needed from Schroeder. And and he's younger. The team
younger,
needs.
And I'll tell you one thing that I do think is like, is Lonzo Ball a like great plays. Obviously, a good basketball player. You put him in the right context, but he is as polarizing a player as the NBA has, not in terms of attitude, but in terms of like what you do with him. There's sort of a platypus feel to a lot of like how people talk and think about Lonzo. But the one thing he'd be great for, you talked about it last week a lot. One thing the Lakers need to do next year is get into transition faster. Great rebounding guard, pushes the floor really well, sees the floor really well. My biggest problem with Lonzo, honestly, is he never plays. Played 55 games again this season. He's only played more than 55 once, and it was last year. Well, how many games were in last year's regular season? I forget.
72.
Okay, so it was 72 last year?
Yeah.
Last year and this year.
Oh, the previous season? I don't remember.
The previous season, COVID.
I think it was
COVID interrupted.
I want to say it was like 56, something like that.
Worst movie ever. COVID interrupted. So yeah, he missed a lot of time. And, obviously he played 52 games as a Laker, as a rookie, 47 the year following. He's hurt all the freaking time. But last year or this year, I should say, it was really seemed like his best as a pro. I would be intrigued by having him come back. I tell you, it'd be because as good a player I think as Schroeder is, I'm up for a new experience. Go back to the old, like the new experience of returning Lonzo. I could go for that.
Here's the one thing,
especially since LeVar's not as much of a thing.
That's
anymore.
what I was just going to say. I just don't want to deal with LeVar again. Like, I just don't want that experience to be relived, and hopefully. He's been more in the background lately. Like, even with LaMelo breaking out this season, you haven't heard as much from LeVar. It's not even that I think it's going to be a distraction for the team. Just at this point, the dude has lost his fastball. Like, even if I think you were somebody who was into the LeVar experience before, and full disclosure, you and I were not at all into it. At this point, the dude's a one-trick pony. He has used all his pitches.
I agree.
It's gotten old.
So yeah, we'll say, and this is something I'm sure we can speculate on recklessly throughout the next few weeks and plan to. So we'll leave a little bit of it there. Let's wrap it up when next on Glen Davis, because we put out a poll. Twitter has spoken, Instagram has spoken. Glen Davis is a bleep hole. We'll talk about that next.
Locked On Lakers brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline, the fastest, easiest way to bet on all your sports action. Baseball season's in full swing. You can track all the action at BetOnline. This week, as always, tons of sports action on the go. Get all the latest news, odds, info for your sporting needs, including MLB, NBA, NHL, UFC, MMA. Before the next pitch, head over to BetOnline on your laptop, mobile device. Check out all the great sporting news, sign-up bonuses, contest information. Don't sit on the sidelines anymore. This is your chance to get into the game as teams are even more neck deep in the playoffs. Head to the website, use your mobile device, sign up today, receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit using the promo code LOCKEDON. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts.
All right. So it was a couple weeks ago now, a week ago now, whatever it was. Kyrie Irving goes to center court at the Garden, and he stomps on the leprechaun.
This is during the first round series,
right,
where the Nets eventually eliminated Boston. This was the last game that was going to be played in Boston for that series.
Former Celtic had said some things about Boston and race questions and racism in Boston and all that kind of not stuff that hadn't been talked about before, but obviously
he clearly left the team on bad terms that frankly have not ever really been quite explained, like exactly
correct
what is driving all this with Kyrie, and
made a lot of people mad, including Glen Davis.
Well, I was going to say, I will even, before we break down what happened with Glen Davis, because I think it matters, I will even concede that the stomping on the Celtics was disrespectful to the Celtics because it was meant as disrespect.
It was intentional. It was
right.
That was the whole point.
It was actually disrespectful. We will concede this point for the sake of conversation. Ultimately, it does not matter. But anyway, in today's game, Sunday's
game,
you'll be hearing this on Monday, Kyrie stepped on Giannis's foot, rolled his ankle back.
By the way, not intending disrespect. That was not, he didn't stomp on the foot in an effort to disrespect Giannis. That was
no, this
accidental basketball stuff.
And he ended up having to leave the game on crutches, walking boot. His availability at this point moving forward in the series, still unknown. Nets ended up losing that game. Series now tied up 2-2. And all of a sudden, Twitter was a tizzy because there was this meme spread around where Glen Davis says, "That's the same ankle stomp on Lucky with a shrug emoji."
Like, karma, look.
Right, exactly.
It should be noted, Big Baby was apoplectic that Kyrie disrespected Lucky in that way.
Right.
But at least at this point, it was like former Celtic angry that team was disrespected. The notion that a player would relish in another player in the NBA getting hurt is crazy to me. Like, over something like that. It's not even like, it had, Kyrie done something like, really, took a cheap shot at, swept the leg of Jason Tatum or something like that during the series or something. Like,
if you're
one of their guys, it's
if you're like a notoriously dirty player, like if you're somebody who has been in the league and always been known as like Kelly Olynyk's reputation, like somebody like that who's got a rep for crossing the line a lot. I'm not saying I would root for that guy to get hurt, but I could at least understand the logic.
Sort of
where
the
somebody would say
satisfaction of it.
Right. You dole out this sort of thing. Therefore, this is happening to you. Again, I wouldn't root for it, but I at least get the connection.
Yes. We put out a poll because, Lakers fans can be kind of crazy. Would we agree?
Yes.
Passionate is the word, maybe the word we're looking for, whatever it might be.
No,
put out a poll. If a former Laker or any player for that matter stomped the Lakers logo or whatever, would you relish in that player getting injured? We have 300 or so votes, and we only put this thing about 20 minutes before now. We're basically right as we started recording. What do you think the breakdown is?
I'm going to say 89% no.
It's not quite as that tilted, but it's 82-18 in favor of no, I wouldn't relish that, to yes, I would. Some of the responses, this from at Christmas Gonzo, the logo is literally a basketball. I'm not going to wish harm on him for stepping on a picture of a ball. It would, let's see, that silly would remember it and want that team to smash him next time, but definitely wouldn't wish injury. It's a logo, says at 7679. At franchise 98BN says no, I would just want them to lose but stay healthy. Lakers don't do players dirty. No, that's scummy. Like, that's all the stuff we're getting. This no, flat no, you don't root for injuries ever. That, by the way, is the correct answer.
Yes.
I am flabbergasted that a former player would say that in a situation where a player, in this case Kyrie, didn't do anything dirty to physically harm someone else. Like, Glen Davis is getting flayed on social media right now and deserves every ounce of it.
It also it needs to be stated, even though this is incredibly obvious. Lucky, that leprechaun, he ain't real.
Nope.
Ain't a real person. He does not represent a real person, does not represent a real leprechaun that was ever alive. No. He is a cartoon. People spend the entire game running all over Lucky. That whole effing game. They are stepping all over Lucky. It's apparently okay. If Lucky was so sacred, he should actually not be at your center court. Like, if there was like a statue of Lucky outside TD and like Kyrie made a point of filming himself urinating on the statue, like, that's way the hell out of bounds.
You can go to jail for that.
I'm not saying that I'm not even saying I want him injured. I'm just saying, like, that's way the hell out of bounds. This is a cartoon logo.
Well, yeah, but it was a disrespectful act that was meant to be disrespectful.
Right.
But this is, people ask me a lot, how does changing, how do you think of sports differently now when it's your job? Some of that is, yes, there's no question that when you cover sports for a living, it changes. And I think this is fairly universal. It changes some of the ways that you look at sports. It can alter your fandom and all that kind of stuff. But in this kind of thing, grew up a Blues fan, love, Cardinals, I've got a bunch of teams now that I really like. With this kind of thing, it's not diehard fandom that guides my thinking. It's the fact that I'm a 45-year-old man. I'm basically the same age as Glen Davis. And as a grown-up, I'm not going to wish harm on another person when they do something that stupid or meaningless or harmless in the context of my sports. I don't care how much I like a team. To actually wish harm on another human being is not something that grown-ups do.
Well, the other thing
I'm a grown-up now.
You can't want heated rivalries. You can't want, especially in today's day and age where a lot of people complain that the players know each other too well because of that they're all friends. This stuff never gets chippy. You can't want it to be chippier. And I'm sure Glen Davis is I guarantee he is of the mindset of wanting it chipper. Chippier. He's from a different era. Fine, whatever.
Back in my day. Right.
You can't want it more chippy, more personal, then get upset if a player on another team who used to play for that team relishes in the idea of taking out that team. Can't have this shit both ways.
Nope.
Sorry.
All right. So Glen Davis, you suck. It was bad enough when you freaked out over him stepping on stupid Lucky anyway. Again, be a grown-up, but this is way worse. So, all right. Again, reminder, you can sign up for Locked On Lakers on YouTube, get all kinds of stuff. You get the podcast itself, and then all the extras that we'll be posting there throughout the summer, and extras from interviews, other topics for shows, reaction to news, all that stuff. You sign up for Locked On Lakers on YouTube, and you get access to all of that. You'll know when things go up there. You'll never miss anything. Locker Room Fridays at noon Pacific. Anything else, Andy?
Nope. Good to go.
We'll see everyone tomorrow.